Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the third meeting of the Rules Advisory Committee. While we are getting started here, just another quick reminder that to access captioning for today, click on the Show Captions button on the bottom of your Zoom screen, right next to the Record and Breakout Rooms buttons, and just click that, and our live captioner should be joining us shortly. A video recording of this meeting will be publicly available on YouTube. We are live streaming right now. And so for your privacy and security, as I mentioned a bit earlier, I recommend putting your first name, maybe your last initial, if you don't want that to be, if you don't want your full name to be public information, and adding your pronouns if you're comfortable as well will help us as we move forward today. Next slide, please. Please private chat any REALD and SOGI staff if you're having technical challenges, especially Kim H. She's our technical hero in terms of Zoom. And so, but also if you can't remember that, you could reach out to anybody privately and we'll help get you on the right path. As I mentioned, I posted the link to the Equity Inclusion Division rulemaking website where you can find all of the resources for today. We also sent them an Outlook, but that can be a little wonky. So just follow that link and you should be good to go. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to, pardon me, I'm going to take us through the agenda and objectives for today, and then we'll just get started. So for today, we'll do some of the opening material. Marjorie will take us through some of the concerns from last meeting to get us on, kind of reoriented to the work for today. Cliff will summarize where we are today and our points of agreement so far on the rules. Then we will get into our breakout sessions. And today we're going to have two 50-minute, that's 50-minute breakout sessions with a 10-minute break in between. Then we will come back together as a large group at 3:25 and debrief all together. And we're going to have 30 minutes to do that. So then finally, the last 5 minutes, as usual, Cliff and I will wrap it up and send you on your way. Thank you so much for being here. Next slide. So that we know kind of what we're here to do today, we included the objectives for today. And so we're hoping by the end of this meeting, participants will be able to understand the role and process of the RAC and how it might relate to these standards. That's what we hope to do in every meeting together. Clarify the goals for OHA and providers in collecting this data, summarizing the main points of agreement on the standards and the points for which more discussion is needed. That's the overall purpose of the breakout sessions for today. And advise OHA and ODHS on both sets of breakout questions. And as Marjorie put in the chat, we only have 2 breakout groups today, which means that everyone will have a chance to go to both of them, and we'll have 50 minutes in each. Nick mentioned in the chat, let's please spend 3 to 5 minutes at the top of the second breakout to catch up new members. I think that's a great idea, Nick. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to pass it off to Marjorie to take us through some concerns from last meeting.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here on Friday afternoon. We're really getting close, I think, and this is not our last work. We have one more in January. But just a reminder that the RAC is an advisory for the rules, but it's not the same as doing extensive community engagement. So just to keep, that's a separate piece. The other piece is whatever, and we would do our best to, we hope that everyone agrees, but sometimes that's not possible. So there is a public comment period after the RAC closes where people can write in comments, and I myself have done that back in 2013. So that's expected. And the rules often do get changed because of the public comment. And even so, the rules do get reevaluated every so often because things change. So this is not the end all be all. This is a process. So this is the third time that we've done, for example, REALD rules. So just to understand that, to alleviate any anxieties that this has to be perfect, it's, the question really is, can we live with it? And then keep working to make it better over time. Next slide, please. This question came up in the last session. Who are the questions for? And I admit it caught me off guard a little bit, and so I wanted to come back to this. But the question was, the question, for example, the language question depends on whether it's for you or OHA, or is it for us, us meaning providers. And I've been thinking about that question, and I realized that was kind of maybe it's a binary choice. It's not, and I don't know that it is a binary. It's not, I don't think it's a binary. It's not, is it good for you or good for us? I think I want us to think about it's actually can be good for all of us. So just starting with the first idea, having the same standard means that it's consistency. And it helps ensure access and equity in services, processes, and outcomes. And we have an example of this in the next slide. For example, next slide, please. So just thinking about language access. So here's an example. So if there's good language information, the way that we propose, and we're working with you on, it means that insurers and CCOs can ensure that the materials are translated in appropriate language and easily accessible for their members. It helps providers to ensure that they have the appropriate type of interpreters and other forms of language access available at their appointment, if they're collecting it before their appointment. Or even if they collect it at that appointment, they make sure they have it for the next appointment. So it helps with provider language access. It helps OHA in the allocation and reallocation of resources and appropriate translations. For example, in public health response, we did this a lot during the COVID pandemic. We used the REALD data to identify where the language translation needs were, and to prioritize certain languages based on data in outbreaks. And it also helps OHA monitor language access needs of OHP members. But I would also argue that it could help providers, insurers, and CCOs monitor that access needs for all of their patients and members. So it's not really a dichotomy. The question maybe that's a dichotomy is it real time, or can we use it right now, or will we use it later? And OHA can't use it right now because we're not in that room with the person, right? So that might be the one exception, but the question should work regardless of whether it's right then and using for real time versus later, to ensure equity in services, processes, and outcomes. And that's what we all want. So, but yeah, that question made me think about it, and I appreciated the question, to be clear on that. And that was it. There were other points of questions that you'll find in the breakout rooms, but let's turn to where we are today and hand it off to Cliff.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to do before moving into breakout rooms is talk a little bit about what we've accomplished in the breakout rooms and in the discussions in the last several sessions, so that we have a shared understanding of the road that we've traveled so far. So first thing I want to mention here is our open text question related to disability. So it's the disability question asked after all other disability questions. So we're now moving toward including this at the end, which is if you identify as someone with a disability or as having a physical, mental, emotional, cognitive, or intellectual condition, please tell us what you would like us to know. And I will add to this, so when I say that this is the road we've traveled so far, what I want to invite you all to do, right, is we're currently of the understanding that we have consensus or agreement on these matters. If you have a significant concern about one of these things that I'm going to be mentioning in the next couple slides, one of these things that we believe we have agreement on. If you have significant concerns about this, let us know in the chat, and then we can, of course, discuss it and consider whether we want to put it back on the table for the 4th meeting. But for now, I just want to share the things that we believe we have agreement or consensus on at the moment. So the first one is the addition of this particular question at the end of the other disability questions. Next slide, please. So this one here is our open text questions for the adult version of the SOGI data collection. So changing the gender identity question to please describe your gender in any way you prefer. And also presenting a sexual orientation question, which is please describe your sexual orientation or sexual identity in any way you want. I want to be clear that these open text questions accompany the question that allows the categorical boxes, right? So this would be in addition to those categorical response options. Yes, I'm seeing Nick's comment in the chat, which is actually the next thing I was going to bring up, which is that we noticed as we were preparing this that we actually have some discrepancy here, where we have in one instance in any way you prefer, in another instance we have in any way you want, and both of these are out of alignment with how we phrase the open text question for race and ethnicity. So we did want to invite brief feedback on whether it's important that these are all in alignment, and if we do want them all to be in alignment, which of the 3 ways of asking this, or which of these 3 invitations to the open text is our preferred invitation for the open text. So do please feel free to use the chat box to provide that feedback. We're not going to pause and have an open discussion on it now for the sake of time, but please do use the chat box for some feedback on that. All right, next slide, please. So this one here is the categorical question for SOGI adults gender identity. So these are the categories that we have, that we believe we have agreement on, as well as some language here that we believe we have agreement on as well. So some of the changes here that have happened since the initial proposal at the beginning of this RAC process is things like it said girl/woman and boy/man, right? We've replaced the slashes with the word or. We've also changed in terms of the last question there, the not listed, we've changed the wording of that to make it more plain language. So instead of asking folks to specify, we say my gender is, and with a blank after, allowing folks to fill that in. We've also added through this process gender fluid and gender queer as well. I believe those are all the changes that we've made since the initial proposal in the course of this process. Okay, let us move on to the next slide, please. SOGI adults sexual orientation categories, right? So here are our categorical responses for sexual orientation. We have some changes here as well, including the removal of same-sex loving. Also on the last category there, the not listed, we again changed the phrasing of the invitation for the write-in option there. And then next slide, please. Yes, so here we've had some discussion over whether to include data collection around names, and we have received feedback about how complex this particular issue becomes very, very rapidly in terms of privacy, in terms of confidentiality, also in terms of legality in many ways. So overall, the current proposal is to remove the names section from the OIRs, I believe, and Marjorie can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe with the intention of going back, doing more research and exploration with the possibility of revisiting this in the future, but for now, removing it. Is that correct, Marjorie?
Sorry, you mean for names?
Yes, for names.
No, actually, we determined that names is outside of the scope of a demographic, and so we will not be included in the OERs. We have to be careful to stay in the scope of what is considered a demographic question.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
Kind of falls out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I see a hand up.
Yeah, it's Antoinette. Hi. I was on the road at the last RAC meeting, and unfortunately I haven't been able to catch up via the recording. So I apologize if this was discussed. But with respect to the, for example, the SOGI adult gender identity categories, as well as the sexual orientation categories, do you plan to include the definitions of these terms for those that are not within the community that may not know what that mean? On the insurer side, I think it would be very helpful. We could easily go on Google and search it up, but it would be nice to have the term maybe coming from the OHA, because you've done your research to find out what the universal term is for everyone to use.
Yeah, and I would address that. So we can share definitions for this inclusion of like a tooltip. Like if you're doing an electronic system, you can there's a question mark like, what does this mean? A tooltip, and then people can click on it and see, oh, this means this. But in terms of defining in the OERs what the definition is, we want to be careful that we only define those definitions that are essential to understanding OERs. And some of these definitions are, what I'm getting to is that it gets problematic when you define something a certain way and then you start telling people this is what it means. So you want to have people self-identify and self-select. But for other people who don't understand the terms, then using the tooltip is a wonderful way with it. And so we can provide that. We have been doing that in our other systems, so that it's right there. Did that make sense?
Yeah, so in essence, you're saying you're not going to actually define it in the OER, but it will be part of maybe simply like in the pull down or something like that.
Yeah, because the OERs, I mean, definition can change over time. So you want to be very careful that you only define those things that absolutely are necessary to understand something else later in the OERs.
Okay.
So if you look at it, we don't define, for example, who is Asian American or who is Vietnamese, so who is this? We don't go into those details.
Okay.
But we have the resources up and we can share more information to help people share with folks.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe a supplemental document for, in the meantime, for those that are actually will be implementing these terms before the drop down is created or anything like that. Maybe a supplemental document that I'm able to take back to my people to make sure that they know what it means and they align with it as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
good
much for-
question. And I see Dr. Dino has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to follow up on Antoinette's comment and question, and also speak to some comments occurring in the chat right now. The definitions are not universal. And one example is, as Marjorie, as you well know, in the work that we have done together collaboratively over the past few years, some people define transgender as a kind of incongruence between presumed binary sex assigned at birth and current gender identity. And some people define transgender, notably scholars from within the transgender community, as an incongruence between current gender and gender assigned at birth, not presumed necessarily assigned binary. And there are consequences for these different definitions. Certain kinds of logic in the ways you can construct demographic questions follow from these different conceptions. And I feel that the approach OHA has been advocating for with the draft SOGI tool definitely stems from one of these definitions, the latter and not the former.
Thank you very much. Any other thoughts, concerns on these agreements before we move on to the things that are still very much on the table? I do think I'm seeing in the chat box things folks are bringing up, and we'll, after the meeting today, we'll process through everyone's comments and figure out what needs to go back on the table for the next meeting. Jonathan, I see your hand up.
So, unless I missed something, apologies if I did. Has this committee seen the draft OAR language? Because it's not, we've been providing feedback on, like, the standards and kind of almost what seems to me like sub-regulatory materials. And I would be curious to see what the actual OAR language is. Hopefully it's not like sitting in an email somewhere and I should have already reviewed it.
I'm seeing that Colleen just shared the link to it in the chat. I believe we've attached it with the pre-meeting materials for the last couple of meetings, but thank you to Colleen for also including it there. It's also on the rulemaking website. So the same website where you can find the YouTube link to view it and things like that. There's the link to the drafts there as well. And these tentative agreements, these things that we just reviewed, are all included in the most recent draft OAR. So you can see outside of just this PowerPoint slide, right? You can see what that looks like written up in the draft OARs. Other questions, concerns before we move forward to our breakout sessions? All right, well then let's go ahead and do it. I want to introduce the breakout sessions today. We have, if we do the next slide, sorry, the next slide, please. We have two breakout groups today. Because we've managed to tackle and address a variety of issues, but still have some lingering. And we also have, because of the number of breakout rooms we've had in the past, we've had some rooms that haven't had enough people to address the necessary questions. So we've narrowed it down to two groups and sort of combined a couple issues, but have the remaining lingering questions fleshed out in those groups. So the first group is a combination of race and ethnicity and language, so the remaining and lingering questions for those two topics. And then the second group combines the remaining sex questions as well as the pediatric SOGI questions, so the things that linger for those. If you want more specifics on, right, what are the particular points of contention that we want to address, again, in the pre-meeting materials and on the website, you can find the breakout session document that has listed in those the questions that we propose discussing in those sessions today. We have from 1:35 until, oh gosh, let me pull up my lesson plan again really quick. We have from 1:35 until 2:25 to work in these breakout sessions. We are going to do 2 rounds of breakout sessions, so you don't have to, there's no need to panic about picking which one you're going to go to, because you can go to one for the first round and then we'll take a break, and then you can return to the second one after the break, so everyone will have a chance to be a part of both discussions. Same general overview that we've had for the previous breakout rooms, which is that we do ask that you select someone to facilitate the conversation, right, to keep it on track, to point us back to the key areas of concern as needed, and perhaps most importantly, a note taker. So someone who's willing to track the main agreements and disagreements and points of discussion to share back in the chat box when we return. We will also have staff, OHA staff in both rooms as always to respond to questions and concerns. As always, please make sure to leave space for the subject matter experts and those with lived experiences related to these particular topics. And if you're dealing with an area that is new to you, or you find yourself needing understanding or more information, don't hesitate to reach out to the staff in the chat for that additional resources and information. We'll do our best to provide all of that. Okay, so again, select a facilitator, select a note taker, follow along the breakout discussion guide for the questions. I know for the Sex and SOGI room, we have just a couple PowerPoint slides that we want to share to sort of kick off the discussion. And I think that might be the case for the other group as well. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to take a quick breather, but we'll open up our breakout session rooms. Please opt into the one that you want to do first, and we will return at 2:25 for a brief break, and then at 2:35 we'll head into the second round of breakouts. Okay, can whoever is steering the Zoom at the moment please share our breakout rooms? Thank you so much.
Hi, Leslie. It's Kim, REALD and SOGI staff. Just wanted to see if you would unmute. Hi, Leslie. Are you unmuted? Can you hear me okay? Leslie, I just wanted to see if you needed assistance with entering a breakout room.
Totally. Yeah, how do I do that?
Sarika is also my colleague here, and I believe that she can help. Do you have a preference for race, ethnicity, and language, or real sex and SOGI pediatric?
Whichever one has the fewest number of people in it for the moment, because I get to do both. So,
Oh, very cool. What do you think? I think sex and SOGI pediatric has the fewest number of folks right now. Would that be okay?
I
Looks
just
like-
assigned I just assigned her to that one, Kim.
Oh, very cool. Oh, of course, yes.
You're ahead of me.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And also I see Francis is here. Francis, would you mind unmuting too? Francis, are you able to unmute? Hi, Francis. It's Kim again, Realty and SOGI staff. Just wanted to check in and see if you needed assistance with entering a breakout room. Hi, Francis. Since we're not hearing a response from you, it sounds like we're going to include you in the Realty and SOGI one. Jonathan, do you mind helping with that, please?
Just added her.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure to some folks it's like it's kind of a more advanced thing to enter a breakout room. So it's good that since they are going to be switching and doing one of the two rooms, makes sense.
Yeah, I'm still seeing her here in this, Jonathan. Am I missing something?
I'm seeing her here, but in the breakout room, she's not here.
I see her there, but she's grayed out. So
Okay, so she chose not to join. Okay.
yeah, I
Could
think
you give
so.
it another try? Is that too much to ask? Just in
Well, I
case.
don't think she's back in the main room, so we can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also see that we have a waiting room guest, Doris Kiragu. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right or wrong. Ying, are you here? Is she in a room?
Yeah, Ying is in the race and ethnicity room.
Okay, let me access our documents. I just want to say how much I enjoy the file organization.
It's a lot easier. Yeah. Hey, it's really Cliff's idea, so.
It was Cliff's idea. I just didn't have a chance to double check your idea, Colleen.
Of course.
We were on the same wavelength.
Absolutely.
The theremin music playing in the background on that one. Alrighty.
All right, for those folks out there on the live stream, we're in the breakout session until 3:25, followed by a 10-minute break, and then 3:35 to 4:20, or oh my gosh. So then 2:35 to 3:25. So we'll see you then.
Hey there. This is Needham. I just want to make sure I have the proper slide up. Are we coming back to the room for from breakout session 1 before we go to breakout session 2, or have we already started in breakout session 2?
No, it's the 2 is the same. It's the same room, so they can stay in their current room or they can come back to the main room and reassign themselves to a different one.
Okay. Are they going to see the little square with the names to jump into a new room?
Yes, it should be there.
Okay. I don't see it on my screen, but that doesn't mean anything. Just checking.
It
Oh, you're
may
not
not
seeing
it may not pop up, but they can click breakout rooms in the bottom and we can reiterate that potentially.
Okay.
You're
Yeah,
also
yeah, that's a good idea.
Needham. Other
Yeah.
Needham. You're also a co-host, so it'll look different to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Should I keep on the 10-minute break slide or move to the next?
I think we're still in the break. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you can move to the next slide in 1 minute.
Okay. I'm just anticipating. Okay.
Yeah.
Great job, Rawson.
Yeah. Good job, Colleen.
Thank you, Hill. No, just checking.
Sorry, I have another Colleen in one of my other units, so I'm used to going by my last name.
Thanks for bringing that up, Colleen. Or both Colleens.
What was that?
I was just saying thanks for bringing that up. I just posted in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
All right, it's about that time again. Hopefully we all got at least a couple of minutes just to take a little breather, but we're gonna go into our second breakout session now. We encourage you to join the other one, but you don't have to. And so we will start the next breakout session right now and come back at 3:25. Thank you all for being here. Hello all, Francis, Antoinette, and Leslie. I want to make sure you're in a new group. We've started the second breakout session. So let me know if you have a specific group you want to go to, or whether you want me to just help assign you to a room.
Would you send me to, I believe it's breakout room 1, please?
Absolutely.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, where can I find a room?
Ah,
Me too. I guess
Oh.
I took a little bit longer on my break.
Probably, yeah, I would like to join the race and ethnicity and language. I mean, other related to race and ethnic.
Okay, got it. Antoinette, which one would you like to join?
I'm joining number 1 because I did number 2 last time.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Marty. It's Kim.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome
Okay.
back.
Thank you.
You know, it looks like there are fewer people in the sex and SOGI pediatric section. Perhaps Cliff might like some support.
Yeah, I was thinking I'll just hop right into that.
Okay, can you join
so
yourself, or do you want me to add you?
looks like I can join.
Okay,
I will
perfect.
join that. Cool. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Colleen, I think I need to rejoin the SOGI breakout session.
Which room would you like to rejoin?
Yeah, the SOGI one. I'm sorry. I should have just stayed there.
That's okay.
Thank you.
All right, there you go.
Colin, you're gonna kill me. This is Antoinette again. I am so confused. So I was in the SOGI breakout session the first time, and then with breakout session number 2, it's a repeat of what breakout session number 1 did, right? So I really no, it's not.
It isn't. Sorry to hop in, Antoinette. We've got race, ethnicity, and language is breakout session number 1. And breakout session number 2 is sex and SOGI pediatric.
Okay, so but I'm seeing the pediatric is basically The same as okay, I'll go back into SOGI pediatric. Never mind.
You can,
Yeah.
you're more than welcome to join the race, ethnicity, and language if you'd like, Antoinette.
Yeah, I think my company, my organization is more interested in the SOGI since there are new standards that are being
Gotcha.
set. So I'll go back and discuss the pediatric. It's just that I joined and I'm like, oh, this looks like the same thing we were discussing with the adult, which may make sense.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll go back.
Oh,
Thank you.
lovely. Thank you for
Sorry.
that. You are perfect. It's good to ask questions, right?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, they're the same rooms, if that's what you need to clarify. But yeah, I can move you.
Okay.
Oh wait, I don't know what's going on.
It is interesting. It looks like it says not joined.
So if Antoinette, if you go down at the bar at the bottom, there's a breakout rooms tab.
Yes.
If you click that.
Oh, it would take me. Perfect.
Yeah, and then you can reassign yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will do that. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
thanks for the explanation.
No worries. Kim, it wasn't letting me move. I think if they don't really actually leave, it doesn't let you move them over. So
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, lots of learning today from, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Hi, Ethan. Ethan, do you want to unmute? Do you need some admin support in joining one of the, or rejoining one of the breakout rooms? Hi, Ethan. Sarika shared the instructions for how to rejoin the breakout room. Unfortunately, if you haven't left completely, you'll need to click the breakout room tab at the bottom of your screen and rejoin or reassign yourself to a room.
He may have gotten disconnected, Kim. He has a gray dot.
Is that what that represents?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, okay.
I just I asked to unmute and he's not responding, so
Yeah, me too. So that's probably why.
yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Let me try. I'm gonna direct message him.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a minute or so, and then Cliff will lead us in a debrief on the last 100 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna sort of take the privilege of having the mic here and finish what I was saying at the very end of the last conversation, which is in both sessions today, we've seen some disagreement. I wasn't in the race and ethnicity and language conversation, so I don't know what that one was like. But I can say that we've seen some disagreement in the SOGI session, and it really gives me a lot of joy and energy and life to see that the disagreement that we're having is rooted in us having different perspectives on how to do right by the folks who are most impacted by this data collection and the use of this data, right? What we didn't see was disagreement in other ways, right? We saw disagreement from folks who share that same passion and share that same interest, but are disagreeing on how best to get there. And that's disagreement that I live for. I love seeing that. So I just wanted to express that my gratitude, for that as the beginning of this debrief. All right, so leading now into the debrief, I want to ask folks first and foremost to please use, if you were the note taker, please take a moment or two to share in the chat box the notes from your breakout session. You can either copy and paste it, or if it's too large, you might be able to attach a document there as well. So share it in whatever way you can, because those notes are going to help us to determine what need to be the topics of conversation for the next round, or what things have been resolved, what things can we sort of finalize in our proposed rules. So those notes are crucial. Okay, the next thing I want to do is then also ask folks to speak out from your breakout groups and give us a little bit of information, just like really high level, like what were some highlights of the conversation. We don't have a tremendous amount of time, but let's hear from somebody in the race, ethnicity, and language group. If you could share what were some of the highlights from the conversation, or what were some of the agreements that were that y'all came to, things like that. Anyone from the race, ethnicity, and language group willing to speak to that?
I'm going to invite, could we invite members from the race, ethnicity, the members to go ahead? I mean, maybe I could just say that there was agreement generally to expand the number of race, ethnicity group from 39 to 62. Jenny, please, and then others.
Yeah, thanks, Marcia. I was just going to say essentially that the OHA brought a proposal on the changes to the race and ethnicity categories on the form, and that there was, I think in both sessions, consensus that although more changes are needed, that as a step, that this set of proposed changes is a good first step, and that everyone in the breakout agreed to this set of proposed changes, with the understanding that more work is needed in the immediate future rather than 2 years down the line.
Thank you, Jenny. I just also wanted to add that RAC members did spend a significant amount of time engaging our communities to ensure that these categories were representative of what they deeply desired for better tracking and data collection, so that we could advance the health equity goals of various communities. So if there are concerns or challenges with data, the Coalition of Communities of Color is happy to have further discussions with providers or anyone else who may be worried about what these categories are, what they represent. Just wanted to share that with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny and Andres. And I think one of the last things is that we made a couple of other asks for changes to wording that were not in the kind of proposal that was presented, but I feel like might have been accepted to kind of transmit. We're not clear on that. I think one was to ensure that we're kind of universally changing the language of other to unlisted or something similar, but I know that the next step on that will be to investigate the kind of best practices and background around it. So that is something to do next, but was also discussed. I feel like there was one other point in discussion. Oh yes, around categories that we'll be doing further work as soon as possible to determine kind of how and when we will put something into a category or just remove categories altogether and have a flat list of response options. So that's all further work, but in terms of decision, yes, it was well summarized by my colleagues.
Excellent. I think Dr. Dino also has a question for the folks that were in that group.
As a brief comment, some of you have heard this before. I'm going to plug it for it again. I'm an Arab American. I'm an Assyriac American. I'm an Aramean American. And when I see Middle Eastern North African as just a blunt instrument where you can select either Middle Eastern or North African, but you don't have Arab, you don't have Bedouin, you don't have any of the rich grouping of ethnicities, you don't have Roma, which we know are present here in Oregon. People in these groups are present here in Oregon. It makes me feel that the ethnicities of the Middle East don't matter.
Thank you for that comment. I'm happy to just reply that the coalition has been engaging leaders who would technically or not technically, depending on folks identify, fall under MENA categories, which is why we're adding 6 new proposed acts, add 7 new of those categories, as well as Middle Eastern other or Middle Eastern unaffiliated, not listed Middle Eastern, sorry. We just talked about this, and not listed North African. And we agree. The communities were really frustrated by having to have some of these broader labels that didn't represent ethnicity, and we hear that, and we hope that over the course of the time between now and the next rules making, that we will have ample time to discuss what are those ethnic categories and how we may propose them and embed them more meaningfully into these into the larger category list. Happy to chat more with you about that offline if you have other questions.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to mention as we sort of wrap up the discussion from that group is really appreciating that this is also, as Andres just mentioned, it's an iterative process, right? Like this isn't this isn't necessarily the end, right? Built into the ORS is a constant revision, constant improvement of the categories that we use, the way that we collect this data. So yeah, I really appreciate obviously very much appreciate the effort that is being made today to ensure that at each stage of the process, right, we get it as good as we can get it. And next time around, we'll get it even better, right, through that iterative process. So I really appreciate all the work that everybody did today to help us to improve as much as we can where we're at today. All right, with that being said, I want to turn it over to I guess back to Dr. Dino, who was our note taker for the sex and SOGI pediatrics group, if you're willing to share some of our takeaways for the day.
Yeah, thank you. It's I just texted you or emailed you, Cliff, my notes to you specifically, because I can't drag and drop and I can't paste them all into the chat. There were a lot of details, so I don't have a lot of high level. One of the most high level points, though, was that we really need to do, the state OHA needs to do a really good job of communicating to patients what might be expected or not expected in terms of confidentiality, especially for minors, but also needs to communicate to providers as clearly as we can what expectations are. And we had discussions about really the scope of OHA's work and where OHA can participate or in saying something to providers, and where the law says providers' best judgment, for example. And so we don't know if there is the possibility for, directing providers towards resources that can help them understand or educate themselves about gender minority experiences, transgender experiences, sexual minority experiences, etc. And, Cliff, you opened our reconvene really with the most important point, which was that you saw everyone, even when we weren't agreeing 100%, everyone really coming together and thinking with care in this rulemaking advisory committee. So those are the high level insights I have, and everything else is really nitty gritty. Like, hey, can we be clear about this particular question that we land it, this way as well as that way? That's about all I've got to say.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. I think let me double check our timeline really quick. I think we do have a couple more minutes if anybody has additional follow-up questions. Yeah, I see Anthony's hand up.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief with the short remaining time we have. I really appreciated the conversation as well. And I do think that everybody is leading with the concern for young people. And I really felt there's a tension between the desire to have participation in the data and access to services, and sort of balancing that with the potential harm that young people can be placed in when these kinds of questions are voiced and asked of them in settings where parents or caregivers might be present or can access this information. And so it's a very tough tension to resolve, I think. So I want to note that. And again, as I mentioned during the last RAC, I think there's a sense from the clinical leaders that I've spoken to that their voices haven't been sufficiently heard in this conversation, and I want to bring that forth to this piece as well, just in terms of how this is likely to play out in terms of clinical settings and the sort of potential trust that could be eroded for young people sort of put into this position.
Yeah, I think I saw Nick's hand up next, so I'll go to Nick.
I think Dr. Dino had their hand up first. Did you want to go first?
Please, Nick, go ahead.
Thank you. I think another takeaway from our session, and I wonder if it might have arisen in the SOGI pediatric session as well, was gratitude for OHA's leadership and convening of these groups and our legislature's mandate for it. These are really hard conversations. They get technical, and there are technical and philosophical differences. There can be moral sort of seeming differences and all of that political stuff at play, right? And because of that, and because not only is it emotionally hard, but it's technically hard, many jurisdictions don't even try. We're trying. And I'm proud and grateful to be a part of this. And I really value my colleagues here. I look forward to our future work. And for sure, it was noted by others that Oregon has done a much better job than pretty much every other state in this. And that we can look to other jurisdictions for kind of best practices and lessons learned, but that we can also be wayfinders ourselves. So anyway, wanted to say that.
Thank you so much, Nick. Right before I want to pass it to Dr. Dino, I want to especially call out the yes, we are doing better than so many other places, and that should motivate us to keep working and keep pushing, rather than saying, we're doing so much better than everybody else, therefore our work here is done, right? So I really appreciate that. I don't know, the acknowledging how far we've come and using that as motivation to say that we've proven that we can keep moving, so let's keep moving. All right, over to Dr. Dino.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more point that Anthony, you got a lot of our conversation of the broad contours in, but one thing that was omitted is from our conversation about asking SOGI questions of minors is that eliminating the possibility of representing queer experience, whether we're talking sexual orientation or whether we're talking minority gender experience as non-binary gender, agender, transgender, something else, that is institutional closeting. It eliminates the agency of queer people to represent themselves. Aside from the question of data and data quality, that act is one that says your ability to represent yourself is not honored here. And that's something that all of the providers that we spoke to who work with gender nonconforming and queer youth and children, young children and older children, in preparation of our 2-year report, we're very clear about that the young people need their voices, need the ability to represent themselves. So I hope I'm not being too ableist by using the word voices there. But that's an important aspect. It's not just a matter of having data, and it's not just a matter of harm that might arise from misuse or incompetence with data, but the fact that, if I can drop a quote, demographic questions teach. They teach who matters in society.
Thank you for sharing that. We do have still a few more minutes. So if there's anyone from either group that has some last reflections to share, please raise your hand and we can do that. Otherwise, if I don't see or hear anything in the next couple minutes, we will wrap up and maybe start our weekends a touch early.
So Cliff, I was just curious in terms of homework for the next WAC. I know for us on the language, we have a few more things to finish up. We also need to do some research around, other listed versus just not listed, and would that be understandable to folks? So just see what's out there. We need to look at consistency across all the different, when the open text questions, how we ask that. We need, in terms of race, ethnicity, I think we're pretty much there, but we're also committing to a community work group to do some deep work and figure out how do we solve the problem with kind of like the race categories that are representing countries versus ethnicities, and to do that before we have a network. So that would be fairly soon. What other homework is there for sets? Is there any homework, or did we? If we could just summarize the homework here, that would be great.
Yeah, I think if I can speak for a moment from the SOGI group, it was less about homework and more about, I think the conversation needs to continue a little bit. Especially in the first session, we didn't get to the specifics. We spent a lot of the time doing sort of shared communal education around privacy protections, confidentiality, what that all looks like in various stages, not just from providers themselves, but then what happens when insurers have the data, what happens in various places in various ways. So a lot of the time was spent sort of laying that groundwork. So we weren't able, I don't think, to fully resolve the questions that were proposed today for that group. I think especially in particular the sex questions and how we want to proceed with those, I think is even more up in the air. So I think more time to revisit those exact same questions. Dr. Dino may have some perspective on, were there additional questions, or is it just those ones that we need to get back to?
I saw some or heard some to do, something that might fit the homework category in those sex questions very specifically, and especially the state ID question. There seemed to be some expression from more than one of us that asking the parenthetical question, what is your current sex, rather confused the state ID question about sex. And I wonder if I wondered whether that question could be rephrased to be state or tribal ID, or could be rephrased in a way which is most inclusive of the various forms of ID that people might carry, which might serve to answer such a question. And there may need to be something like, I don't have an ID option explicitly included in that. It was also pointed out that these questions about sex are important, possibly important for a number of reasons, but one of the key reasons was that this is the only place in the REALD SOGI demographic umbrella that intersex has the possibility of being represented.
Thank you, and I see Seth's hand up as well.
Yeah, just a homework component might be that there aren't a lot of intersex advocates on this RAC, and that might be an important component to involve some feedback from folks who work specifically in this realm. I know that there's some of us from larger LGBTQ plus organizations, but not specifically intersex advocates on the call that I know of. So if you are here, I apologize, but weren't in my groups that voiced any specific feedback.
And can I just ask if the idea of a contest, you know, if you're asking this question because of this, then this, or if it's this, then that, did you discuss that in the, like, what such question would you ask in which context? Was that well received and thinking of it in that way instead of trying to have a one size fit all such question?
It was discussed. Is it okay if I jump in, Cliff?
Yes, and if you don't mind, I want to respond very, very quickly to something that Seth mentioned as well about intersex representation. Two things. One is, yes, I absolutely hear you, and we can do some of our homework on that. And two is we also ask that folks who are representing larger LGBTQ organizations, asking you all to do some homework as well about, right, bringing the proposed questions back to your constituents, right, and getting feedback and bringing that feedback with you to the next time we meet, in addition to us doing our homework. And then back to Alexis.
So Jonathan posed the question, you know, what do we get out of these context dependent sex questions? That was a really good question to raise. And, you know, is it even within the remit of OHA's equity work to frame different sex questions this way? And my own response, and this is just me representing my take on that, was that the context, the different flavors of asking about sex that are context dependent, those are in the service of different situations with which a patient would be interacting with a system, a payer system, or a clinic front desk, or some other interaction within the wider umbrella of state services. And the ways that population health inequities emerge is because people's needs, people of one particular group's needs, are not met, or they're asked to stand in harm's way more than people in another group are. And so when we really tailor questions about sex to specific kinds of use and interaction, where we're trying to effectively make it as easy as possible for people to engage in an inclusive sense, not as easy as possible just to ask MF and have done, but as easy as possible for the patient or the client to say, this is what's going on with me for my needs, then we are eliminating some of those barriers to equity. I think that creating those context-dependent questions is very much in the scope of what OHA is tasked to do with these demographic questions. I think it's actually in the service of creating equity. But that's my take.
Thank you.
One thing I just wanted to flag is the draft sex questions weren't in the ones that we got in our email, so that's why I wasn't able to review those with community beforehand. The draft ones we were sent didn't have the newer ones that we looked at today. If there's a way to send those out, then I can run them by folks. That'd be great.
Excellent. I'm looking at the clock and thinking it's probably time for us to do our next steps and closing. So I'm going to pass it over to Colleen for some discussion of what's happening next, what you can expect next.
Thanks, Cliff. Yeah, I think that we have thankfully had a lot of good time today to lay out some of the things we want to follow up on as a group and from our end at OHA and ODHS. May I have the next slide, please? So in addition to that follow-up that we've listed today, we also want to let you know that our next RAC meeting is going to be Friday, January 12th, 2024 from 9 to 12. So please look on the website, keep an eye out for the materials, but we will also attach them to the Outlook invitation. And you know how to, I would hope you know how to contact us, but I will, just in case, to be as redundant as possible, put in our email address if you have any questions in the interim before we meet again.
And I would just add one thing. The next session, we won't have two breakouts. We won't have any breakouts. We'll be resolving and wrapping up as much as we can. We also have to do some additional work for the Secretary of State as we convene. So there's going to be another piece that we have to do that's around racial impact. And so we do that together in the next session. So it's going to look really different than the last two sessions. So appreciate everyone. Very, very grateful for everyone. This is hard work, and I appreciate everyone, all the emotional labor that goes into this as well. There's a lot of emotional labor here. So thank you, everyone. And appreciation to the staff who are making this. I can't imagine. Thank you so much.
Is everybody able to post in the chat? I'm getting some feedback that it might be where no one can post directly to chat. So I want to just double check that others are able to. And if that's not possible, then I'm wondering if Sarika could help us enable something.
I think
Make sure
those of us who are not co-hosts can only write to you directly. There's no post to everyone.
Yeah, same for me.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember ever changing settings, so that's weird. It's interesting.
You can only select people to chat with. You can't chat with everyone or send a message where everyone will get it.
And can't even chat to all the cool people.
Well, if we can't find that, I will make a note that we can follow up on later to make sure it's not like that for future RAC. And for now, I suppose I would encourage us all, if you don't mind, send all of your feedback directly to Kim H. Send all of your feedback directly to Kim. Kim's been taking notes for this meeting for us, and so she'll compile everything and we will review it all. So very sorry about that.
Yeah. And just know, we haven't been able to turn around and give you your agendas and notes as quickly as one, because what we're doing now for each RAC, we have an internal work group, and then we have the RAC. So it's been like this kind of thing. The nice thing is the next RAC is not like in 2 weeks, and we don't have an internal work group in 1 week. So in the next week, in the next RAC, we should be able to share agenda items, etc., where more in advance. But that's the problem that we've been having is it's been pretty constant. So doing prep all the way to the day before, based on all the feedback we get and all the feedback we get from the internal work group, digesting and synthesizing, it's just a big effort. So appreciate your patience and understanding in that.
All right, well, I think that is as good of a closing as any for us today. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your contributions. As I've said many, many times, y'all are helping us to make sure that this process gets better and better each step of the way, and that our data collection is as good as we can get it in the moment. And so our endless gratitude for you all for your participation, and we look forward to meeting with you again in the not too distant future.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.